Greetings. It is a joy to be with you in this virtual space. Our church community welcomes you, whether you are new or a longtime member. We especially want to welcome those who are here for the very first time. If you would like to learn more about our community and its online offerings, please go to nsuc.org and sign up for our newsletter. There has never been a better time to get involved or become a member of the North Shore Unitarian Church. We would love to get you connected, and we welcome you today. Let us now begin our worship with music.
Welcome to this day. I want to invite us to our time together with words from Kimberly Carson. It is not by chance that you arrived here today. You have been looking for something larger than yourself. Inside of you there is a yearning, a calling, a hope for more, a desire for a place of belonging and caring. Through your struggles, someone nurtured you into being, instilled a belief in shared purpose, a common yet precious resource that belongs to all of us when we share. And so you began seeking a beloved community, a people that does not put fences around love, a community that holds its arms open to possibilities of love, a heart home to nourish your soul and share your gifts. Welcome home. Welcome to worship.
And so we light our flame. This flame affirms the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment.
Hello. I've always loved this time of the year. The school year is winding down. The air is filled with mortarboards, and heads, maybe even yours, are filled with summer dreams. The best part is summer's hourglass hasn't yet been turned over. Everything is possible. Everything awaits. People have been thinking about time, its meaning, and how to spend it for a long time. Today, I have two short poems for you about time. This is a new timetable by Anonymous. 60 seconds make a minute. How much good can I do in it? 60 minutes make an hour, all the good that's in my power. 20 hours and 4 a day, time for work and sleep and play. Days, 365, make a year for me to strive. 8 good things for me to do, that I wise may grow and true. Of course, school isn't quite out of session at this point. Here's a fun little poem about school, the place where I think most of us not only learn how to tell time, but also learn its meaning. From shot clocks to time tests to last dances, tardies and ditch days, to that never-ending math class. School is all about time. This is Late for School by George Ansel. Why are you late for school today? Well, a hurricane came and it blew me away. I landed in Russia, then ran all this way. You're lucky I got here at all today. Why are you late for school this time? I was chased by a bulldog who forced me to climb into a tree where I just had to wait till the dog went away, which is why I am late. You're late again, Georgie. Now pray tell me why. An alien spaceship appeared in the sky. If I hadn't shot it and forced it to fall, I'd probably never have got here at all. Late again, Georgie. Now what's your excuse? I was passing the zoo when a lion got loose. The lion was cross. It was all in a rage. So me and his keeper hid inside his cage. Well, bless my soul, George, what a time to appear. It's 7 a.m. and there's no one else here. I really don't like to say, please go away, but it's Saturday, George, so there's no school today. Well, that's all the time I have for you today. May you find ways to spend the next 10,080 minutes with things that bring you joy. Be well, my friends. Stay healthy. I look forward to seeing you soon.
North Shore Unitarian Church is a community that is grounded in love, guided by reason, committed to spiritual growth, and striving for justice. We accomplish this mission through the generous donation of our members and friends. And so we invite you to text your donation now. Please note that in order to give, you must include NSUC, the designated fund, and the amount.
May 17th is the International Day Against Transphobia, homophobia, and biphobia. This is, of course, in keeping with our first principle, our commitment and covenant to honor the inherent worth and dignity of every person. In that spirit, I invite you now to join me in praying a prayer for my queer and trans siblings by Jess, Reynolds. Here you are, here in this holy space, standing on the ground that is holy because you are here. Here you are in flesh and bone, filling up this body that belongs to you alone. Your pumping heart is a wonder because it keeps you alive. Your loving heart is a blessing because it keeps all of us alive. The spirit of love has a home in you. May we all see that love in you and let our hearts become mirrors for the compassion at your core. The spirit of justice has a home in you. May we light our wicks from one another until we are all aflame, until we burn out every prejudice we carry in these bones. Here you are, holy as you are. Blessed be.
Lord, teach me to know the measure of my days on earth, that my life has an ending, and I must perish, and I must perish.
Our reading today is from an anonymous author called Sometime in Autumn. You know what they say about a long summer? Dad likes his coffee dark, smooth, and bitter, nutty. We sit at the glass door during breakfast, old chums, reveling in the heat rolling from the stove and clinging to time. As the sun swings over our shoulders and reveals the crystal landscape before us, at the back of the pasture, a coyote lopes away from the light because he knows our dog is young, eager, and brave. The horses eye him askance, heads up, ears flickering. Their breath freezes before them. Dad and I imagine their speech bubbles in a comic strip. And we make up a horsey discussion about that rascally coyote. The yard is raw sugar, brown grass with diamond coats. Long winter, I counter, but in the middle, we have this time together.
For decades, social scientists have studied how Americans spend their time. Can anyone guess the number one way that people spend their time today? If you said watching television, you would be right. On an average weekday, Americans spent 156 minutes watching TV, and on weekends, it was even higher. The second activity that Americans spent their time on was socializing, and then below that, playing computer games. Reading came in at a paltry 19 minutes, and sports or physical activity came in at 17 minutes. The lowest amount of time, which I think was quite telling, was spent having meaningful conversations with one's children. People on average spent about 3 minutes a day on that. Now, there's a lot to be made of these numbers, and I will return to them in a bit. But I'm interested in backing up from the specifics of what Americans spend their time on and taking a moment to look at the notion of time itself. What is time? I want to spend some time, so to speak, going down the rabbit hole on this huge philosophical question. And I give you fair warning that this is a bit of a twisty journey because considering huge questions like this can be a bit mind-bending. But I think it is an important thing to consider, in part because the notion of time is so entwined with the human condition, with what it means to live here on this earth. Now, the first thing that we might notice, and that many philosophers have talked about, is that time itself is something that we humans created. There is no universal clock that keeps us all on notice. Rather, our ancestors started to think of time by looking at the heavens and noticing recurrence. The easiest and most obvious recurrences are the rising of the sun and its setting. The next time period to be noticed by our long-deceased relatives was likely the month. It was a way of marking the turning of the moon. Indeed, the word month comes from moon, like moonth. And then there are seasons too, which brought about the year. Without the recurrence of these celestial events, time would cease or simply never come into being. We would never create the concept. My colleague Galen Gingrich points out that eternity is defined as time without recurrence, which is where God or the gods are supposed to live. Without the recurrence of, say, the sun coming up or the seasons changing, time loses its structure and its meaning. Nothing changes. Thus, the Bible is able to say that to God, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day. God exists in the realm of the unchanging eternal, whereas we live in a realm of changes set against and arrangements of marked recurrences. Now, many of you know that I love fantasy novels. And not long ago, I read a novel called Johann Cabal, the Necromancer. It's a weird little novel about midnight circuses with cursed Cupid dolls. Its version of hell is hilarious and on point. Hell is a long line that you have to wait in until your number is called, which is when you are given a huge pile of bureaucratic forms to fill out. When you do that, you get sent through a set of gates, which then leads you to another line with more forms to fill out. It's kind of like a never-ending DMV. Anyhow, in one of the chapters, Johann Cabal is cursed by an enemy magician, and he's put inside what the book calls a pocket universe. In that universe, everything goes on the same forever and ever. A few people fiddled around with a croquet set. It's always lightly raining, and it always stays the same time of day. A stream makes exactly the same sound. The temperature never changes. In this world, time does not exist. Johann Cabal is doomed to spend eternity in this pocket universe. Now, in order to break out of that world, Johann Cabal realizes that he has to break the curse of eternity. And to do this, he has to find a way to mark time. And so he builds a contraption that collects the raindrops and moves when a certain amount of water is filled. The orderly recurrence of the movement allows people in the universe to begin counting time, which breaks the curse of eternity and returns him and others to the world of the living. As silly and kooky as this example is, I also think it contains a complex and perhaps true metaphor. It is about the freedom that we find when we mark time. If we are unable to mark it, we are stuck in a sameness that lacks freedom or decision. But when we can mark it, we find a certain freedom to do with it what we will. In a way, this marking allows us to make decisions about how we will spend our time. Another way to put it is that the limitation of time is also the source of our freedom to decide how we will spend our lives. It is fundamental to our autonomy as human beings. Time ultimately limits us because we only get so much of it, but nonetheless, we get to choose what it is that we will do with those precious, once-lived moments. So this is one view, a view that ties limitation and freedom together within the notion of time. Now I'd like to offer an alternative view, one that is even more complex and counterintuitive. And I give you fair warning, it's kind of trippy, and I feel like we should probably be sitting in a circle listening to the Grateful Dead while we talk about it. It's the notion of time that Friedrich Nietzsche calls the eternal return. And what the philosopher means by this is kind of the opposite of what I have been talking about with marking time. For Nietzsche, he said that we don't only get a limited amount of time, only one life to live. He doesn't believe that. Instead, every action and experience repeats an infinite number of times, according to his system. Like many philosophers, Nietzsche believed that time was an artificial construct. It was a thing that we created by marking the recurrence of events in the natural world. But he went further than this. He said that we notice and mark certain recurrences, such as the sun coming up and going down, only because we as limited human beings cannot see a much broader expanse of time. If we could, we would realize that absolutely everything repeats in exactly the same way on an endless loop. So why does he think that? Here's why. He said that time is infinite, there's no end to it, but the things that exist in time are finite. There's only a finite amount of atoms within our universe. So while there may be a huge number of ways that those particles, those atoms, can come together, because there's only let me start over there. So while there is a huge number of ways that those particles or atoms can come together, because those particles are finite, it is still only a limited number of ways. Thus, eventually, after an unknown number of many trillions of years, the world will come back together in exactly the same way that it exists in this moment. Walter Kaufmann, a philosopher who's commented a lot on Nietzsche's writings, words it more poetically than I have. He says this: "Now, however long a time may pass, according to the eternal laws governing the combinations of this eternal play of repetition, all configurations which have previously existed on this earth must yet again meet, attract, repulse, kiss, and corrupt each other again in exactly the same way." See, I told you it was trippy. Nietzsche thought that with this notion he had proved immortality in a completely imminent and scientific way. Specifically, that our lives will repeat in exactly the same way an endless number of times. Now, I don't know about the science behind it. It sounds like it might be somewhat flawed. But let's for a moment suspend the question of the science behind it and just ponder it as a thought experiment. Would it be good if things repeated an endless number of times in exactly the same way? Nietzsche actually didn't know. In fact, he called the eternal return the greatest burden, but also the greatest challenge for a true affirmation of life. If you knew for a certainty that this particular moment that you are experiencing right now would recur an endless number of times, could you find a way to say yes to it? Could you find a more fati, a way to love that fate? Here is what Nietzsche says: if you learn this truth of recurrence, would you not throw yourself down and gnash your teeth and curse the demon who told you about it? Or would you have once experienced a moment so exquisite that to repeat it through eternity, to learn that you would repeat it through eternity, you would answer, "Never have I heard anything so divine"? Just taking this as a playful, speculative idea rather than a scientific certainty, I think it can actually be an inspiring thought. Is there a way for me to love this moment of life so much that I could will it to repeat forever? I honestly don't know if I can fully say yes, in part because pondering eternity is a bit too big for my brain. But perhaps what's important is not fully wrapping our heads around the notion and rather desiring that we would be able to say yes to this particular moment that we are living into. Perhaps what's important is our wanting to affirm life so much that if it were to recur, it would not strike us as a misfortune. So we have two very different notions of time. One is a notion of time that says our moments are numbered. But in that numbering, in that limitation, we find the freedom to value time and to spend it on the things that we find important in our lives. We are challenged not to waste it. We get one life, and we should live it in a meaningful way. But the other concept of time challenges us in a different way, but also in a way that affirms life. Could we love the moment that we have chosen for ourselves so much that we would will it for all eternity? In both ways of thinking, the challenge is to love the moment, to say yes to it from the depths of our being. Can we do that with the ways that we spend our time today? Partly, I think it means looking at the ways that we spend our time, that we Americans spend our time, and asking if those are truly moments that we wish to say yes to. I already mentioned the moments that many Americans report spending their time on. And you might ask whether those are activities that we want to affirm. What about 156 minutes every day in front of the TV? Is that something that we want to say yes to? What about only 3 minutes having a meaningful conversation with our children? Is that something that we want to say yes to? Which moment would you want to affirm if you had the choice? Because we do have the choice. We can choose what the next moment is going to bring and whether it will include something that is worth saying yes to. If it occurs just once, make it worth that one precious moment. And if it repeats, make it worth ringing through all of eternity. My spiritual companions, today that choice of how we spend our time and our lives is laid out before us. Let us make it matter. May it be so. I love you. And amen.
If I could save time in a bottle, the first thing that I'd like to do is to save every day till eternity passes away, just to spend them with you. If I could make days last forever, if words could make wishes come true, I'd save every day like a treasure, and then again I would spend them with you. But there never seems to be enough time to do the things you want to do once you find them. I've looked around enough to know that you're the one I want to go through time with. If I had a box just for wishes and dreams that had never come true, the box would be empty except for the memory of how they were answered by you. But there never seems to be enough time to do the things you want to do once you find them. I've looked around enough to know that you're the one I want to go through time with.
If you found something of meaning here today, I would invite you to share the link with your family and friends. In a few moments, we will have coffee hour. You can find the link in the YouTube chat and also in your newsletter. But first, by way of closing, I leave us with some words from Wayne Arneson. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, and the path is never clear, and the stakes are often high. Take courage, for deep down there is yet another truth. You are not alone. Amen, and may it be so.